The desert sun beat down relentlessly, casting long shadows and creating an almost unbearable heat. The air shimmered with heat waves, distorting the horizon and making the journey even more arduous. The merchant, weary from his journey, sought solace under the shade of a lone date palm. The tree stood as a solitary sentinel in the vast expanse of sand, offering a brief respite from the scorching sun. His camel, exhausted from the relentless trek, lay nearby, its sides heaved with each laboured breath, and its eyes were half closed in fatigue. The merchant reached into his bag and pulled out a handful of dates. These were his only sustenance, carefully rationed for the long journey ahead. He ate slowly, savouring the sweet, sticky fruit. Each bite was a small comfort, a reminder of the oasis he had left behind, and the one he hoped to find ahead. He tossed the date pits onto the sand, unaware of the danger lurking within them. The pits landed softly, barely making a sound in the quiet desert. Unbeknownst to the merchant, he had stumbled upon a jinn's dwelling place. The air around the cave seemed to hum with an ancient, foreboding energy. The jinn, a powerful and fearsome creature, had been trapped within the earth for centuries. Its prison was a dark, suffocating place, and the jinn's anger had only grown over the years. The date pits, carelessly discarded, had broken the seal of his prison. The ancient magic that had held the jinn captive was fragile, and the pits had disrupted its delicate balance. With a roar that shook the ground, the jinn emerged. The earth trembled as the creature's immense power was unleashed, sending shockwaves through the desert. The merchant, startled by the noise, looked up in terror. His heart raced as he realized the gravity of his mistake. The jinn towered over him, his eyes burning with rage. The creature's presence was overwhelming, filling the air with a palpable sense of dread.
You dare disturb my slumber? The jinn's voice was a thunderous boom, echoing across the desert.
The merchant trembled, his heart pounding in his chest. He could feel the jinn's anger like a physical force pressing down on him. He knew that he was in grave danger. The vast desert offered no escape, and he was completely at the mercy of the jinn. He had heard tales of the jinn's wrath, stories passed down through generations. These tales spoke of the jinn's immense power and their swift, merciless retribution, of their swift and terrible retribution. Entire villages had been wiped out, and travellers had vanished without a trace, all because they had crossed paths with a jinn.
Spare me, mighty jinn! I meant no disrespect. The merchant's voice quivered with fear as he pleaded for his life. I am but a humble merchant, far from home. I seek only to survive this harsh desert and return to my family.
The jinn glared down at him, his anger unabated. The creature's eyes burned with an intensity that seemed to pierce the very soul.
Silence! The jinn's command was absolute, brooking no argument. You have released me from my prison, the jinn continued, his voice dripping with malice. And now you will pay the price. The jinn's words hung in the air, a dire promise of the retribution to come.
The merchant cowered before the jinn, his mind racing with fear and desperation. He knew that he had to think fast if he wanted to survive this encounter with the powerful and wrathful creature.
Please, mighty jinn, grant me but one request before you take my life. I beg of you, show mercy.
The jinn paused, his curiosity piqued by the merchant's plea. He had not expected such a request.
Very well. Speak your request, mortal, but be quick about it.
The merchant, desperate for time, seized upon a plan that had formed in his mind. He needed to outwit the jinn.
Oh, great jinn! I find it hard to believe that a creature of your immense size could have been trapped within that small date pit. Show me, I implore you, how such a thing is possible. It seems beyond belief.
The jinn, his pride wounded by the merchant's doubt, fell for the ruse. He could not resist the challenge to prove his power.
You dare question my power? You shall see the extent of my abilities. I will show you how easily I can fit within that pit. Watch and be amazed.
With a swirl of smoke and sand, the jinn shrank down to the size of a date pit, his form becoming small and contained. The merchant, seeing his opportunity, quickly scooped up the jinn and sealed him within a pouch, his hands moving swiftly. The jinn, trapped once more, raged and thrashed within his confines, his anger palpable even through the small pouch.
Release me at once, mortal. You will regret this treachery. I will make you suffer for this insolence. You will regret this treachery. I will unleash my wrath upon you.
The merchant, his heart still pounding from his close call, stood firm. He knew that he had to be resolute in the face of the jinn's threats. He knew that he could not release the jinn, not after what he had threatened. The risk was too great.
I will not release you, Jinn. Not until you promise to spare my life and leave me in peace. You must swear an oath that you will not harm me or anyone else.
The jinn, realizing the futility of his situation and the determination of the merchant, finally relented. He knew he had no other choice.
Very well, mortal. I see that you are clever and determined. Release me, and I swear upon my magic that I will not harm you or anyone else. You have my word.
The merchant, hesitant but resolute, released the jinn from his pouch. His hands trembled as he undid the clasp, knowing that this act could either save him or doom him forever. The air around him seemed to crackle with anticipation, the weight of his decision pressing down on him. The jinn, now free, towered over the merchant once more. His immense form cast a long shadow over the desert sands, making the merchant feel even smaller and more vulnerable. The jinn's presence was overwhelming, a reminder of the power he held and the danger he posed. His eyes still burned with anger, but his voice was calmer now. The flames in his eyes flickered, reflecting a mix of emotions, rage, curiosity, and perhaps a hint of respect for the mortal who had dared to confront him.
You have bested me, mortal. The jinn's voice echoed across the desert, a grudging acknowledgement of the merchant's cleverness and bravery. I am bound by my word. The jinn's tone was solemn, the weight of his promise evident in every word. He was a being of immense power, but even he was not above the ancient laws that governed his kind. You are free to go. The jinn's words were a release, a lifeline thrown to the merchant in his moment of greatest need.
The merchant, relieved beyond measure, thanked the jinn for his mercy. His voice was choked with emotion, a mix of gratitude and lingering fear. He knew he had been given a rare second chance. He knew, however, that he could not stay in this place. The desert, once a familiar and comforting landscape, now felt like a prison, haunted by the memory of the jinn. The memory of the jinn's wrath was too fresh, too vivid. Every gust of wind, every shifting dune seemed to whisper of the danger he had narrowly escaped. He gathered his belongings and prepared to depart. Each item he packed was a reminder of the life he was leaving behind, a life that would never be the same. Before he left, the jinn spoke once more. His voice was a low rumble, filled with a sense of foreboding.
Mortal, you have been spared, but know this. The jinn's words were a chilling reminder that their encounter was far from over. I am bound by my word, but I am not bound by time. The jinn's eyes glinted with a promise of future reckoning, a vow that transcended the boundaries of time and space. One day, I will be free from this desert prison. The vast expanse of the desert seemed to echo his words, a silent witness to the jinn's vow. And when that day comes, I will find you. The jinn's voice was a promise and a threat, a reminder that the merchant's reprieve was only temporary, and I will claim what is owed. The jinn's eyes burned with a fierce determination, a vow that would not be broken.
The merchant, his blood running cold, felt a shiver of fear run down his spine. The jinn's words echoed in his mind, a constant reminder of the danger that still loomed over him, nodded grimly. He knew that he could not escape his fate. The jinn's promise was a shadow that would follow him for the rest of his days. He returned to his home, his heart heavy with dread. Each step felt like a march towards an uncertain future, a future overshadowed by the jinn's vow. He told his family of his encounter with the jinn, of the promise he had made, and of the threat that hung over him. Their faces mirrored his fear, their eyes wide with worry. His family, distraught, pleaded with him to flee, to disappear, to do anything to escape the jinn's wrath. Their voices were filled with desperation, a plea for him to find safety. But the merchant knew that it was no use. The jinn would find him no matter where he went. His fate was sealed, and all he could do was wait for the day when the jinn would come to claim what was owed.